Hello and welcome to this episode of the Muay Thai podcast. Today is November 8th, 2023. Today I want to talk about just a couple things with Muay Thai. I think a lot of you are going to find interesting. So I'm also live on TikTok at Pu'u Muay Thai, tiktok.com/at Muay Thai. And we're also on Instagram at Pu'u Muay Thai. Please go follow. There's a lot of people that find us through the podcast. So I want to give a shout out to you and all of our podcast listeners of Pu'u Muay Thai. Stoked to have some followers international, right? Got a lot of you in Australia. Shout out to the legends out there in Australia that always come through and dig our content and always give lots of love. So shout out to everybody in Australia. And as always, if you have questions or comments, anything you want to talk about, or you want to give a shout out to your coach, your training partner, and have it embodied here on the Pu'u Muay Thai podcast, go check out our website, podcast.puumuaythai.com. The link is in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's down below as well. All right. So with that said, today I am going to be talking about how I fought on the WBC Muay Thai Diamond Belt for the first time ever for anybody in here. So anybody that's followed on the Pu'u Muay Thai podcast before, we've talked about how people came in to Muay Thai, right? How people discover it. Talk about some people find it through the Pu'u Muay Thai podcast. But for me on this one, I want to talk about how I fought on the first ever WBC Muay Thai Diamond Belt undercard. It was Saenchai versus Kevin Ross. So for me, I just moved back to Ventura, California. My mom had thyroid cancer. I was living down in LA training with my Thai instructor at the time, selling my blood for Muay Thai. We've talked about this a few times on the podcast too. But moved back. I was training when I could with who I could at the time. It was my original coach, Fred. You know, he was kind of hit or miss at that time in that moment in his life. And I would ride my bike probably like 8 miles, 10 miles to go to the gym through like sketchy roads. There's no bike lanes or anything like that to go train. And then I was also taking the train, the Metrolink train from Ventura down to North Hollywood, go stay with my friend Brian and get the train I could. I was actually supposed to have a fight. It was at the Lotus Festival at Echo Park. And my opponent pulled out, and we waited in, I came back later. They didn't want to fight. So didn't end up getting a fight, went through this whole mess, cornerman, everything coming down from Ventura. But it ended up being a good thing because I got the call from the promoter, who is also my trainer, to be one of 2 amateur fights on the undercard for Saenchai versus Kevin Ross for the first ever WBC Muay Thai Diamond Belt. Okay, this was a crazy, crazy event. To think about this moment, it's actually a moment in history, in Muay Thai history now. Kevin Ross actually even wrote a book about it. And we actually have this book on display. It's signed by Kevin Ross at the Pu'u Muay Thai Academy in Ventura, along with the shorts that Saenchai fought Kevin Ross in for that fight as well. So it's a little piece of Americana Muay Thai history, right? So I got this call for this fight and I'm like, man, I'm not really able to train as much as I want to. When I was training at that time, I would maybe get a good streak of 4 days in down in North Hollywood, but I had to eat out. I didn't have meal prep or anything like that. So I'd eat vegetables at Panda Express and steamed rice and stuff. It was a really tough time in my life, but I was like, I can't pass on this opportunity to fight. And my Thai instructor had a lot of faith in me. And he's like, as long as you can train hard, I think you have a good chance of winning. So I was like, it, I'll do it. But it became very apparent that I wasn't going to be able to train as much as I needed to for this camp. I committed to it, so I stuck to it. The first sign was having a hard time making weight. Okay, I borrowed my mom's car to drive down from Ventura to Commerce Casino. Her AC did not work, and it was one of those heat waves where it was over 100 degrees in East LA. So I was literally pouring water over the back of my head after cutting weight all night to be able to make weight for the event. And I wasn't sure if I made weight because my scale was all messed up, all this stuff too. But I was sucked pretty bone dry. I remember just sucking on ice and spitting it out in the hotel room, waiting for weigh-ins. And just knowing that I didn't get to do all the prep that I wanted to do due to training restrictions. I was running, I did all the runs, I did all this stuff, but I was just, I don't know what I was doing diet wise. This is still when I was learning a lot in Muay Thai as well, for how to control your weight, how to be healthy, things like this too. Later on, I discovered Mike Dolce, the Dolce diet. Shout out to him. Go check that out. I actually recommend his books in my book. But I wish I had that content back then. Let's say that. Fast forward, get to the weigh-ins. I came in 2 pounds overweight. My opponent, Alec Gonzalez, shout out to Alec. He's gangster. Great guy too. Just class opponent. If you know Muay Thai, no one hates each other on it. But I mean, I missed weight. That was like one of 2 times in my fighting stuff where I missed weight. The first one was where I didn't know how to cut weight. I came in overweight. This time it's indicative of a bad fight camp. That's what that was. As I went through that, like, it is what it was, and I wasn't going to be able to lose any more weight. I, had some food, rehydrated, and just kind of felt like spaced and out of it. Our friend Takun from Sasi Papa Gym in Bangkok was there. So I'd visited Takun's gym a couple times and knew his fighters very well. So he had one of his fighters that was fighting against a Japanese fighter. His fighter, Rong Ravi, Sasi Papa Gym, was fighting against Kunitaka Fujiwara from Japan. It's a co-main event. So Takun offered to help corner with Crew Dan from Mayed Martial Arts. Shout out to Crew Dan at Mayed Martial Arts. That guy's always had my back and always believed in me. I love you. Going into that too was like, when we were warming up in the back room, right? Takun's like, man, your kick's not that good. Like, what's up? Because he's seen me like when I'm in shape and like training good, because I've gone over there a couple times to train. And he's like, okay, don't worry about it. Just go out there and go fight hard. Like, but I mean, in the back of my head, it's like, I didn't prep as much as I could have for this, right? And I was fighting against a young, hungry guy who on paper I'm supposed to beat. And, so for him, I'm sure he knew that as well at that time. And he's southpaw, it's tricky. So first round came out. I don't remember much of the fight, honestly. I remember little bits and pieces of it. I actually did better than I thought going back and looking at the video. But first round came back. I was too slow. That's just what it came down to. I was way, way too slow. Couldn't really get off in the first round. I think I got dropped like in the first or second round. And I remember just coming back and Dan asking me like, hey, what's going on? Like, are you okay? You want to keep going? I'm like, yeah, I want to keep going. Like, just keep it going, right? I would land some shots, but it was only like 1 or 2 shots, whereas Alec was planting his left leg kick and going to like a Superman punch, and he was just bouncing his hand off my head. And later on, I found out that he actually had broke his hand on my head. So, I had 2 black eyes. I went out into the third round. And I that's where I started gaining some momentum. I think I may have won the third round. I don't know. I don't really remember. I haven't seen a whole lot of footage from it like since then. Did see footage back then, but nothing really since. I think it's still floating around somewhere online. They had like, it was at GFL TV, Go Fight Live TV, was like the go-to streaming service for Muay Thai fights back then. But coming out of that fight too, I learned a lot. I learned about that I have the heart to be able to fight and to withstand that kind of punishment and keep going. I learned that in order that me moving back to Ventura may not have been the best career choice for me in Muay Thai, because I dedicated a lot of my time to Muay Thai, and that made me more depressed than anything. I was so sad. I cried, went back to the hotel room. I was yelling at myself because I let myself down. That was what that ultimately came down to. I let myself down. And this is something that anybody who's fought or done combat sports, like, what that low feels like. It's like the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, is what I like to say. And I was at one of those low points. I had to pull it together because we were going out to go grab dinner at Thai Plaza with Sanchai and the fighters that were fought on the event from Japan and everything like that too. And I remember hanging out with my team and just feeling good, because they supported me regardless. I still, in the back of my head, felt really, really down about that whole experience, because it was like, man, I f***ed up by moving back to Ventura. Like, things are just now starting to kick off for me, fighting on undercard for this, historical event in Muay Thai. And I was being told it's historical. I knew it was, and it's just been reaffirmed with time that it has been too. And for those of you that are over here on TikTok as well, I'll get to these questions. Just stick around just a little bit. So I hung out, went to the Thai Plaza with our team. And like I said, I felt really like down on myself. I got to hang out with Crew Dan, Takun, got some food. And there's some other behind the scenes stuff that I'm not going to really share because it's not my place to tell it. But I would like to have the promoters from that event, Knockweed and Robin Hart, on separately. I believe I can get Robin on here too. If you're listening, shout out to you. Thanks for everything that you've done for Muay Thai. And for me too. Going into that with Sanchai, Sanchai, GOAT, right? For me, I was like totally starstruck hanging out with Sanchai. He told me, hey, don't worry about it. Next time you'll win for sure. Keep training. So, and he was like joking around with me, like, you can't feel bad when Sanchai is like sitting there next to you trying to cheer you up, right? You can't. Just bottom line. Sanchai did win that night too against Kevin Ross. It was a very close fight. And that's what some of the lessons that I went through a pretty deep depression after that fight, because I had to like figure out how I'm going to train. What's my next direction going to be for Muay Thai? And that's a lesson that I carry through for our coaches, for our competitors and our students now too, about how to work through those lows and those valleys and having a support system. Kind of going through here. If you have any questions about that, you want me to go more in depth and you're listening to this podcast or watching it, let me know down in the comments, or you can shoot me a message over at podcast.puumuaythai.com. Links down in the show notes. I'm going to go into the questions here on TikTok from Hades. He said, thoughts on Lithway and Dagestan wrestling. Lithway is great. It's a brutal art. I don't see it being super competitive because of the brutality of the sport, man. There's not going to be a lot of people signing up to do it because they get paid pennies compared to like doing boxing or MMA. And then you have Muay Thai, right? It makes a little bit of money. It's just now starting to get money, but Lithway doesn't have a lot of money. In Dagestan wrestling, I don't know much about it. I've talked about it here that if you get these Eastern Bloc wrestlers opening up a camp in Thailand MMA where they have a Dagestani wrestling coach and a high-level Muay Thai coach, you're going to have a dangerous team coming out of Thailand if you get that. Nicholas Lai says, how are you? My English is no good. No worries, Nicholas. I appreciate you. You're in USA. Awesome, man. But, anybody has questions on Pu'u Muay Thai, or you have questions and you want to talk about Pu'u Muay Thai or just Muay Thai training in general, go check out our YouTube, Pu'u Muay Thai on YouTube. And I just found out too, we're one of the top, or we've taken over on the top ranked of most downloaded podcasts for Muay Thai in the world. So for me, that's pretty freaking cool. That's just like the audio format. Of course, YouTube, there's some badass people on here too. Hades on TikTok says, I'd like to do Muay Thai. What are your suggestions for me to better myself in that route? So Hades, for being a beginner in Muay Thai, go check out some of our content. I have a ton of stuff. At our academy, we like to say we specialize in beginners. So I have a ton of beginner friendly content on our TikTok, as well as on our YouTube channel and our Instagram and stuff like that as well. There's tons of stuff. I just gave out a whole portion of my book. If you're listening to the podcast, go back a few weeks ago. I started leaking out my book I published in 2020 called Preparing for Your First Muay Thai Fight. I called it that because no one wrote a book. It's the first ever book about preparing for your first Muay Thai fight, or preparing for a Muay Thai fight. It's not just general training book. So with that though, it talks a lot about like if you're trying to have a competitive endeavor in Muay Thai, or even if you're just trying to get better at training in Muay Thai or how to be a good student, it is a great resource for it. It is free in the audio format on our podcast, completely free. You can go purchase it direct from us, pmtlifestyle.com, pmtlifestyle.com. You go to the shop there, or you can order on Amazon, because I know ordering direct might not make the most sense with shipping. You can order on Amazon as well. Okay, so there's plenty of resources on that. But the number one thing is just realize that everybody starts as a beginner. And, if you don't have a truly authentic Muay Thai program where you're at, just get any training you can and do your best to save up and go to Thailand. If you need help going to Thailand, we're doing a Thailand training camp in 2024. Hit me up. You can hit me up through the podcast link too. We got a lot of people who are going to be going for the first time. And there's the amazing Muay Thai festival for WBC happening at the same time. The host camp, Keat Kemtorn Gym, is nearby where the tournament's going to be at as well. So I'm very excited about that, to be back in Thailand and to be there for the tournament and stuff like that. Okay. But with that said, thank you so much for tuning in today. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Go hit the subscribe. I would love to see you guys. And with that said, I'm going to be touching up again on our next video where we're going to be talking more in depth about shin guards.